to Advocacy, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She is a best-selling author and the creator of Success Maximizer Method. No other than Miss Elizabeth Gould. Welcome, Miss Elizabeth on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Oh, Daniel, as always, you've given a beautiful introduction. Yes, I'm a best-selling author and speaker, but my passion is giving people the tools to create the life they want to enjoy and how to become the person they want to be. And I do that through a combination of being a master neuroplastician. I do it as an academic. I lecture in entrepreneurship and I'm doing my thesis in the power of imagination at the moment. And really helping everyone get to that next point, because I think so many of us get to a certain level and we just want to make it to that next level. And there seems to be all these invisible barriers and really hindrances holding them back. So I love helping my coaching clients and also writing about how to blast through the barrier and get to the next level.
Miss Elizabeth Gould, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Thank you. And today let's talk about forget positive thinking. Harness the power of your emotion using feeling forward. So tell us.
Well, I
We
will. I
Yes, go
will
ahead.
apologize. I will apologize in advance because I know there are many listeners out there and fans of yours, Daniel, that will have lived a fair chunk of their lives through positive thinking. But don't worry, I'm going to give you a way of absorbing all of it, but taking it to the next level. And I'll explain from two different angles why I say positive thinking doesn't work. Now, I have to confess, being a child of the personal development movement, I lived by positive thinking for years. I read heaps of personal development books. I really believed that you could change your mind by what you said to yourself, and that no matter what happens, think positive. But then I had a particularly unpleasant set of circumstances, and only one of them was that I got aggressive breast cancer. And I had two little children, 2 and 4, and I was faced with the prospect that my odds of seeing them grow up were pretty low. So it was tough. And I'll never forget this lovely woman at a lovely mother at the Children's Childcare Centre had obviously heard about my news, and she came up to me and patted me on the arm and said, just think positive. And this lovely phrase that I had used for so many years now filled me with total and utter rage, because I was doing absolutely everything I could, but it's pretty hard to think positive when you have this very bleak outcome. And I felt it was patronizing and dismissive. So I'm still here, obviously, and my children are now grown up, so I've been very blessed. But I put my reaction to that comment kind of in the back of my mind. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that was a reaction to the really unpleasant set of circumstances I was in. Perhaps on a series of bad days, I was having a super bad day, and that's why I reacted so negatively. But when I began all my research for my book, Feeling Forwards, How to Become the Person Who Has the Life You Want, and then I became a master certified neuroplastician, I then understood that your brain is actually pretty much working against you the whole time. Now, that might sound a little surreal, but there's a misconception that our brain is a self development tool. It's not. Our brain has one program and one function. And if I have to, I often have a bit of a joke with myself about book titles because I've written several, one of my obsessions. But I think if there was a book about losing weight in the bookstore that said, eat fresh food and move, I don't think anyone would buy that book. And equally, if there was a book in one sentence, the one sentence title that really summarized what the brain was about, it would be, I'll keep you safe. And once you understand how the brain hardwires to almost keep you back and you can overcome that, that's when you move beyond positive thinking. So, with your brain, it's really happy if you do the same thing every single day. So, if you had a day on the couch in your pajamas all weekend, every weekend, and you get to the next weekend and you think, oh, I'm going to mix it up a bit, I'll go for a run, your brain will actually try and stop you because your brain is only designed to keep you safe. So, any form of personal development, self improvement, we actually have to get beyond the brain and we have to move into your emotions. Does that make sense, Daniel?
Makes sense, Miss Elizabeth. We are often told to just think positive. Where does this well mentioned advice fall short, and how can actually become a form of self sabotage?
Mm. Well, I mean, I love how many developments have been made and how many strides forward have been made in how we are able to understand ourselves and how we are able to achieve what we want to achieve through changing our behavior. And I think that in some of the early writers, you find equal attention paid to emotions and thinking. But slowly, thinking has kind of taken over. And it's almost like the thinking is the masculine. You can think through this, you can do this, you can soldier on. Or in the entrepreneurial world I am in, hustle, grind. One other colleague said to me the other day, well, you can sleep when you're dead, you should be working. So thinking positive is very much, I think, part of that culture. Whereas talking about your feelings and emotions has been deemed as, more something you do in therapy or more something you do when you're really, really struggling. But one thing that I became very clear on through my studies and my coaching is that you can't think hope and confidence. You have to feel it. So how do you feel it? So how did I start to work through during that very dark time feeling hope and confidence when really the reality staring at me was not hopeful or would not fill anyone with confidence. And there's this beautiful feeling of gratitude, which has been promulgated recently. And it's very popular that we should feel grateful. But I'll share with you and your fabulous listeners the neuroscientific reason why you should feel grateful, because it's much more magical and exciting than you should keep a gratitude journal and you should feel grateful 3 times a day. Yeah, that's great. But the reason is whenever you're in a situation, whether you're feeling ecstatically happy or you're feeling quite miserable and hopeless, if you can feel grateful for just one thing, even if it's, I'm wearing my favorite trousers today, which I am, or anything small, being in the physical state of being grateful actually releases 1,200 chemicals in your brain and your body that make you feel better. And if you like, if you drive a stick shift, or you have worked with engines and you understand what neutral is, what feeling grateful does is it puts you into neutral. You can't feel grateful and angry at the same time. Truly grateful. You can't. It's like having a radio station and trying to listen to 2 stations on the one radio. It doesn't work. So once you get to gratitude, once you feel the incredible impact of truly feeling grateful in your body, then you can move forward. Then you can feel hopeful and confident. And then you start to plan what you want to do and how you want to move forward from that mindset rather than I'm terrified and nothing's going to work out for me anyway.
Interesting, Miss Elizabeth. What happens to emotions like anger, fear, or sadness when you try to suppress them with forced positivity?
I love that question, Daniel. And it's very timely that you ask that because I recently coached a couple of female founders who were stuck at 7 figures and they wanted to move to 8 figures. And there were two key tools that really helped unlock that for them. The first is that everything they had done to get them to that point was going to have to change because how a 7 figure business operates is very different from an 8 figure business. Plus, whoever is running, whoever's the CEO, and even perhaps they weren't the right people to be CEO, but a CEO of a 7 figure business behaves very differently from the CEO of an 8-figure business. So, when we were talking about how to blast through to that next level, we talked about the brain and how the brain is really, really happy to keep you safe. Our oldest, most dominant part of our brain, so 70% of our brain, is prehistoric. Think it's like a reptile brain. You think of a reptile, an alligator doesn't do all that much, but it's really, really good at surviving. So 70% of our brain is designed to keep us safe. So 70% of our brain is fear. So once you understand that fear is almost the status quo and think, okay, last night I said to myself, I really wanted to do this, this, and this, or I was comfortable that I was going to take this risk in my business or move forward. And now this morning, I'm feeling, well, maybe that's not such a great idea. Of course, you might have left out some calculations, but when you start every day, you start from a ground zero, and that is 70% of your brain wants to keep you safe. And that was really powerful for my founders because they felt like they were almost in an emotional roller coaster because they would get so excited about what could be achieved and blasting through the next level. And then the doubts would creep in. And we got really good together at working out which doubts had a solid business practical foundation and which doubts were your brain starting to get really uncomfortable because, it's like, oh, I haven't done this before. It's almost like, think of the New Year's resolutions. I love, there was a recent study, over 850 million people, Daniel, and they found out that they abandoned their New Year's resolutions on average, en masse, between the 17th and 19th of January. I was actually quite impressed. I think for a new habit, particularly a New Year's resolution that can be made up at the last minute at 11 o'clock on New Year's Eve, I thought that was pretty good. But the reason we don't keep the New Year's resolutions and the reasons why we find it so hard to change negative habits that maybe feel good but we know aren't good for us is this whole fear basis. And once you understand that that's almost the set point, it's like, okay, I'm going to do something new. I'm going to harness the powers of my positive emotion for that. But doubts are going to creep in. But that's just my old brain saying to me, hey, you might be shining a little bit too brightly and we don't know what's going to happen when you do that. So let's just take it down a notch.
Interesting, Miss Elizabeth. Truly, truly interesting. Feeling forward seems to require a radical honesty. How do we start to acknowledge our true, sometimes ugly feelings without being overwhelmed by them or judging ourselves for having them?
Hmm. Radical honesty is an interesting one, isn't it? Because it means being truly honest with yourself can mean different things to many people. And there are also times in your life where you are better able to be radically honest with yourself than others. And I think that can be a bit of a two-edged sword when it comes to moving you forwards because radical honesty can send you down a rabbit hole once again because of your brain to everything that you could have, would have, should have done but didn't. I think a more powerful way of looking at radical honesty when you're using your emotions to move forward is being in a state of grace to accept that you're going to be able to do this one step at a time and also one change at a time. You can't, if you're, and so many people do on New Year's Eve say, well, I'm going to get slim and I'm going to get fit and I'm going to increase my business. And they put all these things together, which is often not humanly possible to transform yourself. So when you want to move from fear and doubt, I think where the honesty comes in is acknowledging to yourself that this may not be having a lack of willpower. So many times we blame our lack of success on a lack of willpower. I didn't work hard enough and I didn't try hard enough. And quite often that's not the issue at all. So I think if we're prepared to look at ourselves and say, okay, I want to make these changes, get a really strong feeling in your core, which I call your inner justification, which is part of the success maximizer method. Get a really strong feeling in your core, not only why you want to do it, but what it will feel, what it will mean to you if you don't get it done. And then start moving forward and acknowledging the doubts and the fears as they come up. Sometimes I recommend to my founders that and my clients, you write the doubts and fears down. Because if you don't write them down, you can't deal with them, you can't negate them, you can't get around them. If you write them down, you can go through the list and think, well, this is ridiculous. This was because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and none of us can be particularly positive at 3 o'clock in the morning. Or this is actually has a sound business basis. Or deal with them one by one. Change is uncomfortable. I mean, growing pains. If you're a teenager who remembers growing pains, your legs hurt when you grow, your body hurts. That's what it is like to grow emotionally and also to grow your business. Sometimes it hurts, but don't let your fear brain say, oh, just stop. Just keep using your emotions to move forward.
Indeed, move forward for sure. So, could you define the crucial difference between wallowing in an emotion and harnessing its energy to feel forwards?
I think it comes to the sticking point of why you really want to do something. Because I've coached clients who have uncovered that the reasons why they thought they were doing something really weren't the real reasons. And maybe it was societal pressure, maybe it was parental view on their ideal career, or particularly in the entrepreneurial world, there is a pressure to scale. And when I'm working with founders, one of the early things when we're talking about scaling is, do you really want to? Because when you go to an entrepreneurial get together or you read the literature or you hear amazing entrepreneurs being interviewed, they have always scaled. But I'm like, okay, do you actually want to scale? Do you actually want to be really huge? Or are you happy being at this level right now? So I think when we move through that, wallowing, sometimes wallowing can be good. Sometimes you need to take maybe a day or so, not a year, but you need to take some time off and think, well, why isn't this working? And is this me? And ask yourself those very honest questions you mentioned earlier. Or am I trying to fit myself into a square hole when I'm really a round peg? So I think time for introspection and reflection is incredibly powerful. Wallowing, maybe not so much.
Emotions live in the body, Miss Elizabeth. What is a simple somatic practice to physically feel emotions like anger or fear without letting it hijack your behavior so you can channel its energy?
Mm. Asking yourself really powerful questions. And one of my favorite questions, which I now can use as a default towards nearly everything, I didn't have that when I had cancer, but my default question is, where's the opportunity? So if whether it's a unexpected business development, I have a number of businesses, or someone has a sudden change in circumstances, it's where's the opportunity? And that switches your brain from fear and doubt into possibilities. And generally speaking, powerful questions will open up more areas of your brain than feeling fear and doubt and worry, which really reduces you to a very small part of your brain. I'm glad you raised that question, Daniel, because another very powerful piece of knowledge for your listeners is that when you're in stress, because cortisol and stress in your brain is so damaging, it can actually damage brain tissue. The imagination part of your brain, which is much smaller, actually gets closed down. That's why, let's say you were lying in bed and you heard a bump in the night and you thought, oh my goodness, is someone breaking in? And let's say at that moment, your very, very foolish partner said to you, can you think of your favorite joke right now? You could not physically think of that because you are stuck in fear. So the rest of your brain is shut down because, your brain wants you to deal with this threat first rather than worry about anything else. So if you ask yourself a really powerful question like, where's the opportunity? Or even, how can I move forward through this? What can I do? Even, who can I ask for help? Is going to take you out of that state of your brain. So asking yourself really powerful questions. I really like, where's the opportunity? But someone else may ask themselves, how can I look at this differently? Or where could this lead? And that will really open you up to really being not only better able to deal with what is ever's happening, but also to thrive through it.
Interesting, Miss Elizabeth. And as a best-selling author, creator of the Success Maximizer Method, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
I beg your pardon, Daniel. What share
What are your short-term and long-term goals,
my
Miss?
short term and long term goals? Great. My short term goal is to finish my doctoral thesis by Christmas, which will happen. And then I'm going to be putting out another book next year, really focusing on imagination and the ability to change your life through what you imagine your life is going to be.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Elizabeth. And can you explain to us the Success Maximizer Method?
Love to. The Success Maximizer Method forms part of a number of my coaching programs, including the Founder Success Navigator. But it's really looking at uncovering why you do things, why you want to do it, how you're doing it, and what you can change to get to the next level. So we look at what your aim is, not your goal, your aim, because your aim is broader than your goal. And I think many people kind of tie themselves down to these finite figure based or period of time based 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. But what is it you're actually looking to achieve? What is going to make you feel absolutely amazing? So we look at your aim, then we look at your inner justification. Why is it that you feel compelled to do this? And it's very interesting with many entrepreneurs, they get so caught up with hustling and grinding and working hard. It's like, yeah, but why are you actually doing this? And it's getting back to that magic that really inspired them to start the whole success journey in the first place. And then finally, it's looking at how can we create the behaviors and attributes in you that the person who has achieved the success you want will actually do. So, will the person that you want to become in your business, will they be worrying about XYZ? Will they actually be working 14-hour days? Or will they have a team of 10 people to help them? And it's really almost projecting you forwards into the future to behave like the successful person you want to be now and then attract all of that success to you.
Well, thank you for that Success Maximizer Method, Miss Elizabeth. And tell us, what are some words or phrase that someone practicing this method would stop saying, and what would they start saying instead?
Overall, anything that confuses activity with progress. It's very easy to get really busy and work really hard at things that aren't moving you forward. And I share a phrase like using the analogy of a racing car. If a racing car is sitting there getting polished and tweaked, it's not actually in the race. So the phrase I teach my clients is, will this make the car go faster? So, whatever they do in their business, in their personal life, with their physical health and their spiritual health, am I doing something that's going to make that car go faster? Because if the car's sitting there on the tarmac and it's not racing, then you're not getting anywhere. So, that's one of my favorites, and clients find that really accessible.
Indeed. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, Miss Elizabeth, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 to be in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review Music 101 fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Elizabeth, if positive thinking aims for a constant state of happiness, what is the ultimate goal of the state of being at feeling forwards to help us achieve?
Using feeling forwards, you can really project what you want to occur in the future. And there's a lot of quantum science in my book, and there's a lot of explanation on very set exercises on, you can actually create the future you want to live and enjoy. But feeling forwards, is, in a simple term, is you might be facing a difficult task. For example, myself with my thesis at the moment, I can sit and imagine how I'm going to feel when that task is finished, how meaningful it is going to be for me. And in that emotional state of joy and gratitude and excitement, then I can keep finishing my thesis because I'm feeling forwards that it's going to be a great result and it's going to be incredibly meaningful to me.
Indeed, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Elizabeth. And looking for more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Fantastic. Well, you can find Feeling Forwards, which I'm very grateful has been endorsed by Tony Robbins, on Amazon. Find my website on elizabethgould.com. I'm active on Instagram and more so on LinkedIn. And I would absolutely love to hear from you. Or if you would like a one-on-one call to see if my coaching courses are suitable for you, just reach out to make a time on any of those platforms.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Elizabeth Gould because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering legacy will rise. So, Miss Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Grateful for you and all your work.
Marticon people, see you soon.